She only wanted a warm place to hide her hunger. She tried to slip out quietly, praying no one would notice her pain, until the man who'd lost everything chose to look back and ended up rewriting her entire life. It was a cold morning in late November when Sarah walked into the small diner at the corner of Maple Street, holding her little girl's tiny hand. Her fingers were trembling from the cold, but her trembling wasn't only from the weather. It was from hunger, shame, and exhaustion. Her 3-year-old daughter, Emma, clutched her hand tightly, her big blue eyes scanning the bright, warm room filled with the comforting smell of pancakes, eggs, and coffee. Sarah had walked miles that morning after the old car she lived in refused to start. It wasn't much of a home, but it was all they had left after she lost her job and then her apartment. She didn't come into the diner to eat. She came to find warmth, just for a few minutes to sit, breathe, and pretend for one fleeting moment that life was normal again. She had a few coins in her pocket, not enough to buy even a cup of coffee, but she hoped no one would notice her long enough to ask her to leave. Sarah sat Emma at the farthest corner booth, close to the door, her eyes darting nervously at the waitress, who seemed too busy to care. Emma's cheeks were red from the wind, and her little pink sweater was worn thin, but her face glowed with the innocent wonder only a child could still have after hardship. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, please take a second to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe. Your small gesture might inspire someone else to make a big difference today. As they sat there, Sarah tried to distract Emma with soft words about imaginary pancakes and warm syrup, telling her maybe one day they would have breakfast here together. But Emma's gaze drifted, landing on a man sitting just a few tables away. He looked out of place in that small-town diner. A clean-cut man in his mid-30s wearing a dark coat over a pressed shirt. His name was Michael Brooks, and though his life looked polished from the outside, inside he was quietly broken. A year ago, his wife had died in a car accident, leaving him alone and hollow. He hadn't slept properly since that night, and most mornings he came to this diner not for food, but because the silence in his house was too loud. Michael noticed them only when Emma's soft blue eyes met his. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't asking for anything. She was just staring at his plate. The steaming pancakes, the scrambled eggs, the bacon glistening under the morning light. It was a look no child should ever wear. A look of hunger too familiar for her age. Sarah noticed and quickly pulled her daughter's hand. "Come on, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling as she stood. She didn't want anyone's pity, especially not from a stranger. They'd been looked down on enough already, by landlords, by people who thought homelessness was a choice, and by those who believed kindness had an expiration date. She turned to leave quietly, keeping her head low, praying to slip out unnoticed. But Michael saw her. He saw the worn-out shoes on her feet, the trembling in her hand, and the little girl's eyes still fixed on his plate. Something inside him, something long buried under grief, stirred. He couldn't look away. Without thinking, he called the waitress over and asked for 2 extra plates. Sarah was almost at the door when the waitress's voice stopped her. "Ma'am," the gentleman over there said, "breakfast is on him if you'd like to sit." Sarah froze. Her face burned with embarrassment. She wanted to say no, but then she felt Emma's small hand tighten around hers, felt the way her daughter's body shivered. Slowly, she turned around. Michael gave a faint, warm smile. Not the kind of smile that demanded anything in return, but one that said, "It's okay." They sat down. Emma's eyes widened as the waitress placed a plate of pancakes in front of her. The smell alone made her giggle softly, and that sound, it was like music Michael hadn't heard in a long, long time. Sarah whispered a quiet thank you, her voice cracking halfway. The first bite Emma took made Sarah's eyes well up. She turned her face away, pretending to look out the window, but Michael noticed the tear that fell onto her sleeve. For a while, none of them spoke. The diner's hum filled the silence, the clinking of plates, the faint chatter of morning regulars, and the sound of coffee being poured. As Emma ate, Michael watched her with a soft ache in his heart. She reminded him of his late wife, Rebecca, the way she'd always fed stray cats outside their door, the way she believed everyone deserved kindness no matter what. He used to tell her she was too soft for this world. Now he realized maybe the world needed more people like her. When breakfast was over, Sarah tried to insist on paying, fumbling with a few coins in her pocket. Michael gently shook his head. "It's already taken care of," he said. His tone was calm, but firm, not pitying. Sarah looked down, ashamed, but grateful. As she gathered Emma's coat, Michael noticed the old car parked outside. He could tell from one glance that it hadn't run in a long time. Without hesitation, he followed them out, offering to help. Sarah refused at first, but when the car wouldn't start after several tries, she gave in. Michael rolled up his sleeves and worked silently, his hands steady, his face calm. When the engine finally coughed to life, Emma clapped her tiny hands, squealing with joy. Sarah's smile, fragile and rare, appeared for the first time. It wasn't a smile of comfort. It was one of disbelief. The kind people wear when they can't remember the last time someone cared. She thanked him quietly. Michael handed her a small, folded note before stepping back. "In case you ever need anything," he said. That note had his number and an address. Sarah hesitated before taking it, unsure if she'd ever use it. But that night, as rain poured over the car they slept in, she opened it again, her fingers trembling. She wasn't sure what made her do it. Desperation, faith, or the memory of that morning, but she called. Michael answered instantly. Within an hour, he was there, standing outside the car with a large umbrella and 2 paper bags of food. He didn't ask questions. He didn't lecture. He simply opened the passenger door and said softly, "You both shouldn't be out here tonight." That night, he took them to a small guest house he owned behind his late parents' farmhouse. It was clean, warm, and filled with the faint scent of fresh bread. Sarah cried silently after Emma fell asleep in a real bed for the first time in weeks. Michael stood outside the door, listening to the soft rhythm of a child's peaceful breathing. A sound he hadn't heard since Rebecca passed. Something inside him healed that night. Days turned into weeks. Sarah found small ways to repay his kindness, helping around the farmhouse, washing dishes, cleaning the porch. Michael never asked her to. But every morning he found fresh coffee waiting for him and a drawing from Emma taped to the refrigerator. Stick figures of Mr. Michael holding her hand. Over time, their pain became the bridge between them. Michael learned how Sarah lost her job after the company shut down, how she had no family left, and how she tried to keep her daughter's hope alive when she had none left herself. Sarah learned that Michael's quietness came from grief, not arrogance, and that behind his polite smile was a heart still learning how to beat again. Winter melted into spring, and the world around them softened. Emma began calling Michael Uncle Mike. Sometimes when she'd fall asleep on the porch, Sarah would catch Michael looking at her with the same gentle warmth he once had for his late wife. Neither of them spoke about it, but both felt it. Months later, Sarah found a new job at a nearby elementary school cafeteria, and Michael helped her get her car fixed for good. She started to believe again, not just in life, but in the idea that good people still existed. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Michael came home to find Sarah and Emma baking cookies in the kitchen. Emma looked up with a wide smile and said, "Mr. Michael, Mommy says, we're staying here forever." Sarah froze for a second, embarrassed, but Michael only smiled. He looked at them both. The woman who had taught him to live again, and the child who had unknowingly healed his heart, and said softly, "I'd like that." That night they ate dinner together at the same diner where it all began. The same booth, the same warm lights. Only this time, Sarah didn't try to leave quietly. She laughed. Emma giggled. And Michael's heart, once shattered, felt whole again. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Let this story remind you that kindness costs nothing but can mean everything. Special request comment below. Kindness still exists if you believe that one act of compassion can change a life forever. And as the diner lights flickered softly over them, Michael realized something profound. Sometimes God doesn't answer prayers through miracles. He answers them through people. Sarah and Emma were his answer, and he was theirs.